Greetings, fellow dragon fruit growers. This is Paul, and I'm so excited to head back to Wallace Ranch to meet owner NEVA and hybridizer Julio Robles. Now, I attended the festival back in 2019 and got some cuttings here, as you can see, and now they've turned to fruit in just 2 years. So I have several varieties that have produced fruit. Now, as you can see, Wallace Ranch is 15 acres of organic dragon fruit in North County, San Diego. They'll have anywhere from 4 to 6 bloom cycles per year. They produce about 20,000 pounds of fruit, and they have 19 varieties and counting. Their top 3 producers are American Beauty, Physical Graffiti, and Julio's Robles Red. So let's get in the car, let's go check it out, and let me take you to the amazing Wallace Ranch. All right, hey everybody, this is Paul. I'm at Wallace Ranch, and I'm with the creator of Robles Red, Julio Robles. And Julio, I've noticed online that some people are having fake varieties and calling it Robles Red. It doesn't look like your fruit. You know, I see that every day. And so I'd love for you to tell everybody the history of the plant and how it came to be.
Yeah, well, we started, when we started doing the growing here, we started doing like for fun. So we started getting some seeds and everything was marked as a red. And then I got a friend who works on a farm, and I started getting some fruits from him. And then I started mixing some seeds from orejona and American Beauty, and then we started getting the plants.
So you grew from seed? Did you graft them or just grow straight?
No, we just grow straight.
So you grew true from seed, and I mean, now it's a big part of this ranch. A lot of the...
when we start seeing the difference on the fruit, that this was different everything else, then we start asking if somebody knows what was the name of it, and nobody has it.
With some fruit. And you crossed American Beauty with orejona pollen, and it took on the best traits of both, right? It's self-fertile, it's hardy, it's not frost sensitive. So it took both of the best traits of the parent plants and produces these really large fruit. And it's a magenta inside, it's not a red flesh.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long is typical harvest time from flower?
We started to notice that there was one NEVA like 37 days.
Yeah, Robles is about 37.
37 days.
Yeah.
37 to 42.
And it's getting multiple waves because we were up in another plot and we saw flower buds on.
Yeah, that's what NEVA told you before. This year we didn't see a big bloom, but what we seen is it's been coming one right next to another one.
Just consistently producing blooms throughout the year. Yeah. And then on top of being a good fruit, a good producer, it's a great pollen source too.
Yeah, great pollen source, yeah.
And how long have you been selling it commercially for? Like how long has it been out there for people to acquire?
5 years.
About 5 years?
Yeah, about 5 years, yeah.
And if the best place to get this variety would be from Wallace Ranch, you guys sell cuttings, correct?
Yeah.
And what's the best way to get to that? Is it a website?
It's WallaceRanchDragonFruit.com.
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 And that's all you need to know. And you can get yourself a legit Robles Red. And that's what they look like.
Right.
I think Robles is it's a really good fruit actually, and from production standpoint, so it's a thicker skin, it's a hard skin. If there was a negative, because the bracts get a little hard, they can break off a little bit. But it's just a beautiful fruit. It is so consistent. 3/4 pound easily is our average on the fruit.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you just have this beautiful pink. It's like a pink red fruit. I mean, you can see them when they are ripe. They're like little, Christmas ornaments on the tree,
okay.
you know, because they're
like
just
the
this
little
bright
Christmas
pink
balls.
thing. And I'm like, oh, we got Robles ready, you know? And so we just we're in a little bit of a Robles pick right now, or just finishing. And we had fruit that was easily 1.5 pounds, just huge, just these huge. And we haven't had too much. They can crack when they get that big.
Okay.
So a little bit of the nose cone. So we talked about protecting that nose cone.
Yeah, because that's where they usually crack first, is right there. That makes sense.
Yeah, there's a theory the Vietnamese people love buying in the cracked fruit because they think it's sweeter. So yeah,
so I think it's more water, and the amount of water the plant gets.
Yeah,
that's what I think why it cracks.
Yeah, I still think nose cone, because if you look at the nose cone, it's a really hard surface, and you just think of all of the elements that are happening on your nose
So you think it's more the nose cone than the watering?
I mean, it can be a little bit, but there's an expansion. This gets really dry. If you look at it, just start really looking at your nose cones and you'll be like, oh, okay.
And so since you guys have been cutting the nose cones with that strategy, less cracking.
We've seen less cracking for sure.
That's awesome.
For sure. So because we have American Beauty, the Robles, that can happen to mostly just those two. Those two. And we didn't have as much cracking last year with American Beauty. We started seeing it at the beginning of the year, and that can also be fertilizer. So, you when you start playing with different things, it's hard to say, is it the temperature? Because we're hot, cold, damp, dry, right?
There's just so many variables.
There's so many variables. So you're just trying to.
Not always one cause and effect.
Yeah. So I think if you think you have maybe a cause, just stay humble and stay open. That may not necessarily be it. So just say, okay, we think it might be it, but it might be something else.
And you guys have been growing for what, 6 years now here?
2013 the plants went into the ground, and then I joined in 2018.
So 8 years. Yeah. And it seems like you've learned so much since I was here in 2019.
Yeah.
It seems like this farm has evolved so much in your knowledge base and the strategies you're doing.
Yeah, I think this year was actually one of the ones where we kind of thought that we knew what we were doing, and then we just, our first pick was really tough. And it just gets disappointing because we had a huge bloom. I think over 6,000 flowers and we hand pollinate every flower.
Every single one?
Every single one. We count every single one. It's American Beauty was our first bloom. It's American Beauty is self-pollinating, right? Self-fertile, but we still go there. Do
you mix pollen or do you?
So our biggest lesson of the first bloom was we were pretty confident that we were going to set the bloom because it's self-fertile.
What it do is right.
So usually we have Robles Red blooms at the same time, but Robles was late for some reason, so didn't matter. Okay, so we're pollinating. We set it. We're like high-fiving, like perfect set. I mean, literally one of our best sets ever. And so we're thinking we have 6,000 units. We typically will take 50% for poundage. Stuff happens to fruit sizing, everything. So we go, well, that'll be 3,000 pounds. And at the end of that pick, we had about 12 to 1,400 pounds, which never has happened. And so we were like, what happened? Now we had a ton of small fruit. They tasted delicious, but ton of small fruit. And I just sat on this over and over, and I was like, what did we do wrong? And then all of a sudden it hit me. By self-pollinating, you're not bringing something else in. And so...
And the plants have adapted to that, it seems, right?
Yeah.
But did you take collection of all 20 American Beauty flowers and do it one thing, or did you just go one flower and pollinate it?
The way we do, if we have a flower out here, the way we do we have one? Okay, when we go up there, we'll show you. But we take, when the flower is open, so we take a cup, just a plastic little cup, and the makeup brush, and we brush in the pollen, and we pollinate, and we go to the next, and we mix it. So we're just constantly mixing.
So even mixing a bunch of, say, 50 American Beauty plants, you still got the small fruit because it's all the same DNA.
Correct.
Okay.
So basically we had, I would say, a third or a little bit more than a third were what we would call our normal 3/4 pound to 1.5 pounds.
Yeah.
And then we just had this abnormal amounts of kind of like 1/2 pound and under fruit. And
can you sell those?
And yesterday I didn't show you, and you didn't show the fruit, but the second bloom on the American Beauty, remember we pollen with the Robles, and there was almost a pound every fruit.
So we learned the way. We had a field of over here of physical graffiti, and so Tomas had pollinated the physical graffiti, and he starts on the outside. So when he went to the outside, his first pollen he was collecting in his bucket was physical graffiti, and then he was pollinating it. Well, the bloom didn't set, and I was out there looking at how it was the only bloom that we hadn't set all season, and I was like, what? And I was like, oh, hello. He probably had started with 0 pollen in his cup, because sometimes we carry pollen over, but he probably had 0 pollen in his cup, but he did what he was supposed to do. He collected the pollen and he pollinated. The problem was he was collecting PG pollen for PG
Yeah.
pollinating. And it wasn't until he got through where there were other varieties. It was that thought process that made me go back to the American Beauty. And I said, oh my gosh, we have been so confident that American Beauty, because it's self-fertile, can pollinate itself, which it did. We said it.
Just small fruit.
It just was small fruit. And
so you guys learned a lot. That was all this year.
Yeah, that was all this. And so it's just it's that humility where you think like you know what you're doing and you're doing good. And we were high-fiving that we had such a good fruit set, but then when we went for the pick, it wasn't what we wanted. And the outcome was because we needed to think through the pollen even more. So as good as you can get with pollen and pollination, you can still get a lot better. And when you're on a production of over 5,500 plants pollinating, I would never say to Julio, like, oh, you can only take Robles. But what we did after that was we said, cover all the Robles and get that in the pollen bucket. Just make sure we have them. When the whites, we have whites here, and we have whites really for pollen. And so we said, get all the pollen from the white. So we covered. So then we had a backup of Robles and white pollen mixed. And then we could mix that with PG and American Beauty and everything else.
Do you refrigerate any of it or freeze it?
We did on that just so we had emergency backup.
I've noticed that that will set smaller fruit too. Like frozen pollen.
Got it.
The best is mixed fresh pollen. If you have 4 or 5 varieties, I'll just mix it up, and I'm getting some decent sized fruit off of small plants.
So that's good to know, because we did that. We have 1 bag in there for emergency, and
it will last like 6 months in the freezer. I've used 3-week-old pollen from the fridge this year, but the fruit was smaller.
Got it.
So it's something about having that really fresh pollen, and I collect mine at 10:30 at night because I don't like the bees will get it in the morning. Right. This to me looks like orejona. I know, but the color.
Yeah.
So we're just all these are darker. These are more dark. And then that one has a little more AB to it, in my humble opinion. But we'll just see. Here, I'll cut them in quarters. We have a paper towel. Keep them together. Do you guys like to refrigerate your fruit before you eat them, or do you eat them straight off of the plant? I prefer. I think refrigeration changes flavor sometimes. But so sometimes I like it chilled, but sometimes I just like it right here. We won't refrigerate our fruit before it goes to market. We don't. Yeah. And then most stores, do they refrigerate your fruit, or does it stay out? It stays out, but it starts in a cooler. The trucks are all refrigerated. Then the problem is the trucks are refrigerated at 38 degrees, and dragon fruit should not be refrigerated at under 50 for the longevity. So if you put it in your refrigerator that's 40 to 44, you're actually diminishing the shelf life also of your fruit, but you have to. Your refrigerator can't be 50 because things would spoil. But so what we're trying to do, because we did have a problem where I know our fruit was just diminishing too quickly, is if it was sitting in somebody's warehouse for a few days at 38, that wasn't going to be good.
What are you eating right here?
This is Robles Red.
Now this one, it tastes like orejona. I'm telling you, it does. I saw it. Look at it. I said it. So that one's not in. It's the one when it gets with AB.
I really like that flavor.
Now this one totally different. Okay, I'm gonna give you the example right here. So somebody eat this one first, and then eat this one.
All right, I will. This one and that one?
This one first, yeah.
Okay.
2 completely different.
Milder profile. Not too sweet, but balanced.
But just
not bad, but not amazing, right?
Yeah, totally.
And then this one?
Then, yeah, try that one.
And the ripeness was similar.
Yeah. That's weird.
It goes from a 5 to like an 8 or a 9.
Isn't that weird? Totally sweet and
delicious.
Then softer, right?
Nice moistness.
So I almost...
Whatever that one was, it was delicious.
But no acidity, which is interesting because Robles typically has... This one didn't have acidity and that one didn't have acidity, and that's unusual.
And that was really sweet. It tilted to the sweet scale.
Isn't that weird?
And that's all because of cross-pollination.
That's all the cross-pollination. That's the best example right there because you can just get those...
I got it right there. I know now what you were saying. And so, in your opinion, that sweeter one is probably American Beauty. If you had to guess, or you're not sure?
There was no American Beauty in there. I would say maybe Sugar Dragon, and I would say orejona.
Okay,
Those
so
would
maybe
be
yeah,
my two
because
guesses.
that one did remind me of orejona. I see what you're saying.
That's the first one.
Yeah. Okay. But this is that sweeter one, I think.
And the sweeter one has a Sugar Dragon taste to it. Did you try it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does taste more like Sugar Dragon. Now, were you aware of this a year ago, or is this a pretty new thing?
I started being aware of it at the beginning, and we kept saying, we kept asking, and we were told there was another conversation on this, and we were told, no, can't happen. And I was like, it is happening. It is happening.
Yeah, these are. I mean, it's all the same fruit, totally different profiles.
What was American Beauty?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I could tell the color of the magenta. So this one, probably, did it have some acidity to it?
Not really.
No, not really. Yeah, none of this has acidity, which is weird. So,
They're all really delicious,
no, but just
but the sweetness is
not weird.
and tartness is
Yeah, the first one, it wasn't
Unique.
solid, right?
Oh, this one has acidity.
It was great.
So it's not strong, but it's completely different than the one that I just had there, or wherever the one was.
it's all based on pollen source.
That's all pollen.
So it almost seems like if there's some research done on, okay, let's use Sugar Dragon on these fruit, let's label it, let's see the sweetness. All right, let's try orejona on this.
Yeah.
And you can see a difference. You could be able to track the data.
So like my thing would be American Beauty with Robles, I think enhances that balance profile. But if you wanted sweeter, if that indeed was a Sugar Dragon, then you could just Sugar Dragon with Robles could be your, if you want sweet, without acidity.
Yeah, or if
right?
you have somebody, or you really want to add a different flavor, you can use more orejona pollen to get that kind of less sweetness, more, I don't know, I call it like a raspberry vibe.
I do wonder if Gray, because Gray and those guys mixed around with this so much that they have to have some sort of information that would, confirm.
I think some people know more about it than we do, right?
Yeah. But then again, if you've grown, because we have over 20 varieties here, a lot of farms just go down to these, 1, 2, or 3 varieties. So then you may not have as much of that awareness because it's just 3.
You only have 3 types
right?
of pollen.
And that's it, right?
Where people like me, where I have like close to 200 varieties, now I need to be really careful about which pollen I use, and I could ruin a fruit maybe even too. You don't know. Where I could improve
Well, that's
it.
like, I think the if that was orejona, that would be no, because it detracted from, it didn't bring anything to the.
It was my least favorite out of all the fruit I've tasted here. That was my least favorite one. But then going right back to my favorite one, because I like the sweetness, it's totally different.
Robles, when we were pollinating with American Beauty, was more the magenta. So you can see the tail end of this piece right here is more magenta. And this is a darker red. So it's a nuance, but it's probably an important nuance. But you can see that these look very similar there. So, and then I would imagine this should just taste. All right, everybody try one.
I will.
Oh, you're gonna really laugh. You're gonna really laugh.
Oh.
It's PG mixed with orejona, I think.
It's very tart,
Very tart.
but enjoyable. But it doesn't have the sweetness like the others.
Isn't that weird? But
Sour.
it's really sour.
Sour texture. Yeah.
Isn't that weird? I mean, that might not have been ripe, but it still wouldn't be.
That's crazy.
Uh,
I actually like that one the best.
Yeah, you kind of like the tartness.
I
right?
like tart ones too, so I never mind tart.
I still like that sweet one I had here. That was my favorite the other day. That's PG, right?
No, this is AB.
AB. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so let's see. We'll see what this guy tastes like. But this looks pretty traditional AB. But you can see that's when you start to get that
Yeah, it
more
is AB,
magenta.
okay.
Our Robles, when we were doing this is what it looked like when you cut it open. So immediately you knew that something else was going on. Well, that's pretty AB. These are all picked yesterday, so they have not.
So this is Dark Star?
No, this is an AB, but I think it's an AB with dark star pollen.
Got it, got it.
It's different from that AB
Yep,
for sure.
for sure.
Actually, like that is a little more. It's probably grapefruit too.
Kind of like a grape vibe.
but it could be, a lot of this stuff should be pollinated with, the bloom was PG. So PG would be a dominant pollen we had at that time for sure.
Okay.
So.
I like that one. The last one we had was probably my favorite. Firm flesh.
That has a flavor, and normally there's no flavor.
Sweet and tangy.
Isn't that weird?
This is good.
So this is kind of like what Bien Hoa or like a Thai.
The finish is not my favorite though. It's like, I can't describe it. No bueno.
At least it has a flavor.
Yeah, it does. It's flavor, but the finish is kind of like epiphyllum-ish. Oh, rose-ish.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
after eating this, I'm
rose.
like, okay, I'm okay not growing this in my collection.
Yeah. But normally there's no flavor, which is what's really interesting. And so that's why I had one of these the other day, and I was like, I didn't tell him. I was like,
The big one?
It's enjoyable. Like,
Yeah, I don't mind this. I like it.
most people go and they go, what is that? Oh, that's dragon fruit. Oh, I've now heard of it. If you said that in 2018, people hadn't even heard of dragon fruit. So now people are at least aware. I think the awareness has come from Starbucks, honestly. Starbucks has had since 2018 2 drinks on their menu that are dragon fruit drinks. And so that basically introduced people to dragon fruit. And now you start to see it more in the market. The second thing that made people more aware is a lot of fruit started coming up. There's 7 countries that can import, I think 7, into the United States. And it started coming up from Central America into the United States. Pitaya Plus is a frozen, what do you call it, quick freeze fruit that has come into places like Costco. So by actually having the fruit, the awareness has been there. As a production grower, what we worry about are what your fruit looks like when it gets into the market. So probably the best advice that was given to me when I bought the ranch was somebody said, NEVA, fruit rots. Always know where your fruit is going. So this fruit does rot. It can have a good shelf life. However, you have a skin life issue. And each variety is different. So when we go into production, what we would like to see, most people who are dragon fruit aficionados, they say, oh, I want a big fruit. Okay, that's very common.
Yeah.
If somebody's never bought a dragon fruit, a big organic dragon fruit could be $20 in the market.
Yep.
So, is that what their first try at a dragon fruit, is that what they're going to want to pay? So we actually had pushback from big fruit, that 3/4 pound acceptable, but getting the big fruits may not be until somebody frequented that market and really understood that that's the fruit that they wanted to buy. So that's different. So a local customer might want to buy big fruit, whereas a market customer might want to just try an average size fruit.
Because it's smaller at lower cost.
At a lower cost. The one thing that we get all the time, which I'm sure you guys have heard, is most people's first try of fruit is typically a white dragon fruit, which typically will be a Vietnamese giant dragon fruit.
Kind of bland.
Typically is bland.
Yep.
And
harvested early and imported usually.
And imported. I think their transportation time, because they are by ship, their transportation time from Vietnam, I think, is 12 days. So whatever from harvest to clean to box to boat to transport to them market, right? So that's a lot in there.
It's
And
like at least 2 weeks and being
Correct.
efficient and fast, in my opinion.
2 weeks,
something like
and then radiation takes the rest of it. What's left on it.
Yeah. So, and that's right. So Vietnam has to gas their fruit. That's the only way that they're accepted into the United States. And so that's another element of the fruit that is imported. And so that was one of the reasons why Julio and the old owner had grown organically and we certified organic, was we felt that we have a really positive story to tell, that we go to market with a very natural product.
It's an advantage.
And it is an advantage. So the other part with the fruit, is your skin. And so this is where we've had a lot of debate, is a variety such as Axe is never really turns pink. So it's green and it turns kind of a yellowy, a little brown when it's really ripe. And so that might not look pleasant to the consumer in the marketplace.
So they were looking for bright colors, salmon colored, red.
Where those
Right.
Thai whites, they look really good, but they don't taste that good.
Right. So we have the other thing too is because the marketplace hasn't really settled, you will see signs that say white, red dragon fruit, yellow dragon fruit. But the red dragon fruit is referring to the skin, and yet it's white inside. And so the marketplace has kind of messed that up. So
They're really confused now, the consumers.
And the marketplace has confused the consumer. So when we see it, we try to have our wholesaler unconfuse the market to make sure that they're saying it right. So red flesh, white flesh is the first break in what's supposed to happen in the marketplace. Because you can't necessarily determine, if we had a whole field of physical graffiti, we could send to the marketplace physical graffiti and call it that, but it's just not a perfect world with dragon fruit. And so when we go to market, we may send 100 cases of 50 of those might be physical graffiti, 25 might be Robles. And we found that it was too hard to try to get a variety into the market because it would be a 1 week shot and you never know how many pounds that's going to be. So we go to marketplace still with what we call magenta flesh. And so that's now going back to the big 5.
So now you're going white, red, magenta?
So white, red, magenta.
Perfect. I think that's good.
How we determine magenta is the most flavorful fruit. So we call it California magenta, and that is something that is going to be full body fruit effect. So a lot of people who don't know dragon fruit, I compare it with apples. And so this is really easy if anybody's talking to somebody that doesn't know. So, okay, do you know apples? Do you know the gala apple? So the gala apple is a very inexpensive apple. It's pretty.
Yeah.
It's a pretty apple. When you bite into it, it's just pretty bland. So I consider the gala apple and Vietnamese white the similar. So
Yeah.
that is
Right.
the similar.
That's a good analogy.
Then I have the pink lady apple or the honey crisp apple. They're big, they're full bodied. You bite into it, you get a lot of flavor burst. Sweet tart, right? So this whole thing going on.
Layers of complexity. And
That's it.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what a California magenta fruit would taste like. And so with that, American Beauty we found had that, Purple Haze has that, Dark Star has that, Physical Graffiti has that, and Robles has that. An interesting thing that we had with Robles, it's not in my first season, it was an okay flavor profile. I would say a 7.5. And this year, our flavor profile, last year I said, geez, Robles are tasting better. And this year I said, Robles tastes almost better than American Beauty, which trust me, I'm American Beauty girl. And so I was like, what? And we just found from maturity, cross-pollinating, fertilizer, water, everything, that Robles flavor profile has enhanced. I would give it an 8.5 plus. And so you can actually change flavor profiles through cross-pollination. When we just picked Vietnamese giant, and they were smaller. I don't know what they were pollinated with, but they were tangy. They actually had flavor.
They were pollinated with Robles.
So by cross-pollinating, we actually changed the flavor profile of a very bland
Not so much
fruit.
the color, but the flavor, right?
But the flavor. So I just literally cut into one because I wanted to see if it was bland, and I was like, whoa, this actually had some flavor. It's not, it's nothing.
So do you think using like a Robles Red, a complex pollen, the pollen of a complex fruit is going to improve maybe a more bland variety? Is that kind of what you guys are thinking?
I can say in my experience, and I think Julio will back me up on this, in my experience, we have changed flavor profile, and it's because of pollen.
That's amazing.
So,
that's a really important factor.
And I eat the fruit all the time. All the time. I mean, I'm trying it all the time, and I 3.5 years, and I would say like, wait, that doesn't taste like what it's supposed to. And so that's when you go back, or you could cut open a fruit that typically was less seed dense, and it literally looks like a Robles, which is a higher seed density fruit, and it looks like a Robles inside. And you're like, whoa, that was pollinated with
because
a Robles.
it had Robles pollen, so it took some of the traits.
So,
Interesting. That's
yeah.
really interesting.
And I think when my first Pizza Haya festival, I asked a question because they were talking about cross-pollinating. And so I said, does it change the fruit? And they said, no, it just takes the best traits and it can enhance that. And that was the answer. And it was kind of a weird answer. And then what we found is it's actually a true answer, is that truly traits start to morph into the fruit, and it can actually change shape of the fruit. Like we can have a physical graffiti start to look kind of like an American Beauty. So a physical graffiti is oval, right? And American Beauty is round. So if you sliced either of those, you got oval, round. I mean, there's a very clear distinction. Well, you start to see a physical graffiti round up.
I mean, like an oblong? Does it go kind of halfway in between, or does it really take on
the
pollen trait?
It really starts to round up.
That's crazy. That's so interesting.
Yeah. And so when you deal, that's the one thing, when you deal with 5,500 plants and fruit all the time, our production on fruit is, we just say 20,000 pounds. And so you're touching this fruit all the time. You start to see these things happen, and you're like, But this year, 100% that our Robles took on really American Beauty flavor.
Wow.
Because that's what it was pollinated with. So, yeah.
That's really interesting. I mean, that makes me think a lot about what you can, if you want to have a better fruit and you have lots of varieties, you can tap into different flavors.
Yeah.
Or what if you took the same plant and use 5 different pollen sources and analyze those fruits and see the differences?
Yeah. So I think what we found is maybe we've hit our sweet spot where we stride mostly with those 5, and they're all delicious flavors, so they could bring a delicious trait to the other. And so by just really focusing on the 5, we have that. We still will bring in, orejona has saved us, as I mentioned. Lisa has saved us for pollen. They're very high pollen producers. So when you really need pollen, that can help. We don't take pollen from Axe anymore.
No.
It was too wet, and it just didn't.
It doesn't seem to have a lot. There's not much in there.
Yeah, you would think it should, but it just, so we don't take anything from Axe anymore. So really our pollen is coming from the 5 with some whites, sugar dragon, and if we're in a jam, a Lisa or a orejona. So yeah. So those are the 5 we go to market with, and we just feel that the customer, if they got that home, they would be really happy with the flavor profile, and they would say, wow, that was good. And they might not become a dragon fruit fan. Like Dickie is a watermelon fan, and he goes, well, it doesn't taste like watermelon. I said, well, that's because it's dragon fruit. Right? So, but I can't get it. He only likes watermelon. So, but as long as somebody says, yeah, that had a good flavor. And we had a person's husband who had tried white and was not a fan. She said, please just try NEVA's fruit. And he was like, yeah, that is good. And so he's not, #1 dragon fruit fan, but he was able to know that there is a flavorful dragon fruit out there that is
representation, because so many people will spend $7 on a pretty fruit at the store, cut it open, and be like, wow, that was gross.
Yeah.
It's bland. What happened to the,
Yeah.
I thought they were good.
Yeah. And so it's disappointing. And you also, one of the things we talked about was if you are a backyard grower and you have a choice of what plant, it's the same thing. I remember reading somebody's on Facebook on one of the sites, and they said, oh, I got my first fruit, it tasted horrible, but it was some fruit, some variety that everybody was touting because it was very unique, but they weren't touting it from the flavor profile. They were touting it from
the flower, maybe
the uniqueness. And so this poor person had waited for 3 or 4 years and then got the first fruit, and it was horrible, and I felt really bad. So I always tell people, if you're gonna do fruits, go with high producers, go with flavor profiles, because if you're growing for fruit, then be happy with the fruit. If after you get those going, then go into more unique varieties.
Good morning, fellow dragon fruit growers. This is Paul, and look at these 2 beautiful fruits from Wallace Ranch. This is American Beauty. It's weighing in at 1 67/100 of a pound, quite a large one. And Axe here is weighing in at just over a pound. So really nice sized fruit, as you could see. Now this one is a little bit green on the skin, but that's because it was in a shady spot in their farm. And you can see here that it's cracked, and that's how we knew that this one was ripe, and it's quite large. So sometimes the skin may be a bit green on these varieties, especially Axe, as you can see, because it's ripe when it is a green skin and it's just starting to turn color from as the outer skin is thinning. So both of these fruit are ripe. So let's go ahead and compare them. Let's cut open Axe first, so you can see what a beautiful color it is. And you probably could have even left it on a little bit longer. It's nice thick kind of skin here and beautiful colored flesh inside. And it has a very interesting story, the story of Axe. So let's give it a taste. It's really unique. Kind of like a hint of banana. And I really like it. I think it's a good fruit. It does have an interesting finish. I'm not quite sure how to describe the finish, but it's very, very sweet. So that's Axe, which is an Edgar Valdivia seedling, Asunta unknown pollen source. That's what X stands for. Let's cut open this large American Beauty, which is the Wallace Ranch American Beauty. And look at that. Beautiful fruit. You can see it's definitely, the skin is getting a little thin here, so it's definitely really ripe. And let's give this monster a taste. What a big fruit. Delicious. Now going head to head, you can see some differences here. The one on the left is a bit more magenta, and this one has a bit more of maybe some pink tint. And this one is traditionally green skin when it's ripe. So let's see and compare the two. Seeds are bigger in this one, as you can see. Wow. I'd have to say head to head, American Beauty gets it by a clear point. I'd probably give this an 8, this a 9. They're both really delicious, both unique in their own way. This one could be possibly on the vine a bit longer. It was really delicious. I think what it is that this one is probably sweeter. Here's the bricks on it. I'll test it later. But here's the bricks on it. I'm gonna guess it's in the around 19. And so it's sweet, but then you get a little bit of a earthy finish, and it does taste more like I call it a banana. It's definitely sweeter, but something about the finish is not as good as this one. Or there's something about this like acidity and sugar in American Beauty. I think this could be a G2 style of American Beauty in my personal opinion, based off of some things I've learned over the years. It's definitely their Guatemalans. But this is definitely a winner. By a point, for sure. I give this a 9. I really enjoy this fruit. It's one of my favorite. Look at the flesh to seed ratio. I mean, look at the amount of flesh right here. Hardly any seeds at all. And that is what makes a dragon fruit the best, in my opinion. That's something I really look for in a fruit. But there's no hate on Axe. Axe is really delicious as well. And you know why Axe probably would be a tie? Is because it should probably earn a point for its flower. It has one of the most beautiful flowers of any dragon fruit varieties, in my opinion. It's red, reddish purple. So my Axe at my house should bloom next season, so I look forward to sharing you and show you that. Okay, and then what's the delay between the fruit leaving the farm and going to the store? How long does that take?
We pick, it goes, and it's typically on an 18-wheeler that day or the next day. So it is literally on the way to market.
So this one's ripe. This is
well, see, on orejona, we have to wait a little bit more to get a little more darker, because otherwise they'll get too acidic.
Oh, it'll be too tart.
Yeah.
And the
So
customers
this-
don't want that.
yeah.
They want a bit of a balanced
And
sweet.
they can resist a little more, so we let it get a little more red.
And this is Linda's orejona, right? It came from Linda's?
Yeah.
And you can see it's flower. It's got
Yeah,
another
getting
flower
Starbucks
bud.
in my head.
I got the same. I like this plant a lot. It's one of my favorite.
The orejona this season, I thought was if I said this was a good season for any variety, I would say orejona loved this season.
Yeah, look at that.
It's been consistent. It's saved us on pollen because it's been so
Flower bud here.
consistently blooming. So, and the fruit size has been really consistent.
Yeah, that's a really nice size fruit.
Um,
Yeah, so when I was here, I think this was just
Watch.
getting installed.
Yeah.
So when you walk, so you can kind of see the variety. So this where it looks more anemic, you have a little bit of orejona, and then when you get in here, you start to see dark star, and I think we have some PG in
And
there.
here we
probably
try to plant 5 plants for each variety.
And they were separated 10 feet, 8 feet,
six.
7,
6 feet,
6 feet.
6, I think.
And you like this distance?
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
Because I was
yeah.
doing 10 and it seems a little bit
Yeah,
too
I think
much.
Too much, yeah.
So 7 is what you guys
Yeah,
do.
this is 7. We
This-
got enough space to walk in the middle.
The spacing on a field like this is really good. And then the only thing that we debated is we would have taken our posting down even lower.
Mhm.
So we always say the top of the post at 4 feet, and those were done 5 feet.
5 feet.
So I'm 5'7", so you can kind of right. So that's really
Yeah, I'm
Almost
doing
5.5.
mine. They're right about here. So like
That's-
4.5 feet
that's-
is where
that's
four.
correct.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I always thought I'm a little short, but it
Yeah.
works for me. So
Yeah.
you wish that these were a little lower.
No, I mean, and
Or
here
it's
is
not bad.
fine.
Uh-huh.
But right now, everything that we start replacing right now, we start doing it at 4 feet.
Yeah.
And I remember you were building these at a certain cost,
Yeah.
and you had it down to like $30
Yeah.
or something like that. And it was a
Yeah.
good cost.
I think it 13, 13 I think.
13?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a good.
So
Can't beat that.
we had to just buy more wood for the forms, and it happened to be when the wood prices were high. But we were doing 24 forms,
24, yeah.
but now we have
32.
32
So you're
forms.
still producing these same
Yeah, we're
concrete
still.
structures, same length and the same height and everything.
No, we're taking a feet down now.
You're a little shorter.
Yeah.
And how far do they go into the ground?
3 feet.
3
Those
feet.
are 3 feet.
Okay.
So the post you're looking at was in a form that was 8
8
foot,
feet.
and then it was sunk down 3 feet. So
Okay.
you end up with the post out of ground about 5 feet, and then we cut the form down to 7 feet
And now they
because
go 3 down.
and they go
down.
3
we get
down and
4
they
That's
out.
get 4.
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Makes sense. And you can see that these guys aren't so quick to grow. I mean, they're still producing
Yeah.
orejonas, but then like this one, it's probably roughly the same age, but it's a very mature plant. It's big.
Yeah, they're all the same age.
Is this Dark Star?
No, that's Haley's coming.
His comment.
The plants have done terrific in this field. They were well trimmed. Julio came through here with the team, and then they grew kind of what we thought they would when they go through growth spurt, and we had trimmed. Well, we had to do a lot, like this is growth, so we had to do a lot of trimming up off the core. So that'll get trimmed again at the end of the season. But
But then
we
do
just
you use these for cuttings? Because like Leonardo at Oceanside
If we
Dragon
can.
Fruit said that he really believed that these are the best cuttings down here, and that's what he liked to use. So I thought that was an interesting concept, but
we just did a huge cutting, and we took all the long cuttings from the
okay,
bottom.
you do the
so-
long ones, yeah. But he pulls them
We
from
just
down
did a
here
big one.
because he says it's so much energy up here, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But you also want, like, when you take your cuttings off, it's also managing the core. So one of the things, I had gone to another production farm, and what struck me was their plant was here. So they were on a kind of more of a trellis system, but same concept. But their plant was here, and they didn't have anything going on here. It was just a
Yeah,
clean
it's just-
core.
Mhm.
So I came back to Julio and I said, it was more like when you go to train your plant, where do you want your energy to go? And so we at the end of last season and beginning of this season, we cut anything that was on the bottom and trying to just keep one
So
lead,
you want one brand,
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
palm tree effect, like you
a
said.
palm tree
Okay.
effect.
And you notice that improves production, and it's just the best route to go.
Yeah, I think it's good for plant management and your airflow, and you're keeping your production here.
Mhm.
on the plant. I mean, because we will get blooms anywhere where it's possible.
you
where
can
there's
get
a
it down
thorn,
here.
there can be a bloom. You
And
know,
when they
so.
get all bushy like this, sometimes you get a lot of fruits in here, and they get all smashed in there. So that's fruit that you just wasting because they got that, and it's really hard to get.
Yeah,
it out.
they'll get all distorted, or you
Yeah.
can't get them. Okay. Greetings, fellow gardeners. This is Paul, and today I'm going to share my experience with this interesting dragon fruit that I got from my friends at Wallace Ranch. Now you can see this is not photoshopped like some people implied. This is something that does occur every now and then. This is the only branch that turned into a fruit at Wallace Ranch. So out of 20,000 pounds of dragon fruit, this is the only one. And they weren't 100% sure, but they thought it was delight. So I'm really excited to do a review on this fruit. It's very interesting to me. And I guess I'll try to save this branch just for fun. So look at that. A little bit of the coloring of the ripeness into the flesh of this. So I'll try to root this just to see what happens. I find that really interesting. Wow, how cool is that? So again, this does not happen all too often. I've never had it happen in 4 years of growing dragon fruit. So hopefully I'll get to experience it one day myself. All right, let's cut open this little fruit. Guess I'll cut it down this way just to kind of dissect it. And there we go. It does look like delight. So I think Julio is correct. So a little baby delight. How cool is that? I find this really interesting, in case you can't hear my enthusiasm. So, very cool. I wonder what it tastes like. Let's see. Not very many seeds in it. Wow. It's delightful. Might as well check out the bricks just to see what type of sugar content a branch can produce. It's definitely really ripe, really juicy. And I guess the only difference I see here is that it's not that many seeds. So 17, 16 and 9/10. But it tastes delicious. Especially for how small it is. But I do find that really interesting that it's just almost all flesh. There are not very many seeds. It's really, really juicy too. So there you go. Thank you, Wallace Ranch, again for allowing me to cut this open and experience this unique occurrence that does happen every now and then with dragon fruit, where the branch will turn into a fruit.
A person from San Diego told me, from the state that works with bugs, told me that if we didn't have a lot of praying mantis, that was probably because we didn't have a lot of food for the praying mantis. So they probably went elsewhere.
Moved on or something.
So next year, what we will do is we will get the egg sacs.
Yep.
And we will bring praying mantis back, and the praying mantis should take care of the problem.
Okay, that's smart. That'll work pretty well.
That's all we can do.
Yeah, if you buy like 10 or 20 of those things and spread them out,
That's
you'll
all we
have
can do.
plenty of manti.
So the only bad thing is I raise monarchs.
Oh yeah.
So our first praying mantis that we found happened last weekend, and he was right on my milkweed, and I was like, look, praying mantis, cool. So every day I went out, how you doing, buddy? He's just sitting on the milkweed. And then it hit me, I haven't seen any of my monarchs on that milkweed. So I literally had showed Julio, and then I said, I think I better move the praying mantis off my milkweed. So I went to get him, and there he was with a monarch.
He's eating one.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's all my monarchs.
Well, at least he's doing his job, right?
So I've now moved into the tomato plant where we have tomato worms. and I'm hoping that he has an appetite for tomato worms. And he was there yesterday where I left him. So I said, Julio, we are pollinators, right? So pollinators, basically 70% of all the food in the world is food because of pollinators.
Yep.
And so ironically, we are human pollinators. But we talked about bees, butterflies, birds, bats. Those are all pollinators. And it just hit me something with the monarchs. I tried to grow pollinating gardens, and then the monarchs came in. They will only come in off of milkweed. So they will only lay eggs on milkweed. And so it was kind of this weird thing. I started saying, well, why only milkweed? So I started studying them, found out that 70% of the monarch population has declined. They were saying that it was because of loss of habitat is the primary. And through raising monarchs, I found that in this area, it's not loss of habitat as much as it is, there's something called the tashnid fly, Tachnind fly. And the tashnid fly has a parasitic relationship. It lays its eggs on the caterpillar or on the leaf, and the caterpillar ingests it. And then the larvae live in the caterpillar. The caterpillar's life is 8 to 10 days. The larvae's right at day 8 to 10 basically is at its max point and goes in for the kill for the guts and the brains. And so your caterpillar, who is about to go into a chrysalis, basically dies.
Yeah.
And so we had 100% death because of this tashnid fly of the monarchs. 100% death.
Wow.
They say that they can get a bacteria, everything. It was 100%. We're talking hundreds of these caterpillars were dying because of this fly. So I started bringing the caterpillars inside to see if we could raise them inside and get them to chrysalis and become butterflies. And now we have 80% success rate inside. Every once in a while, they will still ingest, because if you don't clean your milkweed, you can't. I mean,
So you have to clean the milkweed.
So I clean the milkweed. And right now I'm in there. Anyway, there's 4 generations of monarchs. The 4th generation is hatching right now. The 4th generation is the migration generation. So this is the most
super important.
This is the most important generation to make sure it lives, because they will go and migrate most likely to Mexico, and they will then reproduce next March, April back here.
Wow.
And so
Will they come back here?
and they will come back allegedly. So we'll see, because right now I have 100 caterpillars.
Wow. So your theory is they're going to go down and come back.
And then come back and we'll see. Yeah.
Kind of like what they do in the Santa Barbara I've been to those eucalyptus trees, and they just
Yes.
dominate that area.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So they go into migration. So we don't know if ours will leave, but this is the generation that literally lives for 9 months. First, second, and third generation. So first generation gets hatched between March and April, and it goes through. So first, second, and third, they only live 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So, and they don't really know why the 4th generation has this incredible lifespan of 9 months versus 4 to
That's
6
crazy.
weeks. Yeah.
There's so much we don't know about things like that.
And so then when you're out on the farm and you start to see all these things, your perspective just changes. Like you kind of say friend or foe, right? And what's going on. And then there's, the biodiversity. The reason why the tashnid fly is probably really bad in this area is it was used as a kind of an organic solution to thrips, to different things on avocado and citrus trees. And so
There's a lot of avocados here.
So we're in avocado capital of the world, and we're also in a citrus, pretty dominant citrus area. And so it's likely that the fly was brought in, it has been brought into other places to help control pests for those crops. The problem is the fly doesn't discriminate between the pests on those crops and a monarch caterpillar.
Unforeseen consequences, right?
Yeah,
That's
so it's
sad.
super interesting.
That's
So-
crazy. Well, I'm glad that you're saving the monarchs.
So
That's awesome.
yeah, so it became a little project. So I'm at 4th generation, and we're
Wow.
gonna see this thing through.
That's incredible.
I want to know if they come back. It's going to be how many months? I'm going to ask you. I'm going to call you.
So March, April is when they come, and if anybody wants to create a monarch sanctuary, all you need is milkweed. They eat other pollen.
Does it need to be native milkweed, or can it be
It
that
can be
tropical
it can
stuff?
be any.
Okay.
It can be any milkweed. They prefer. There's a debate between native and tropical. They think that tropical, because it blooms year round, it might cause the butterfly not to migrate. There's a debate on that. So
Okay. So that's debatable.
That's debatable. But so they feel that the default is always saying that native is better because native has kind of a seasonal lifespan. But,
And it won't be a food source for them this certain time of year.
yeah, so we are actually we sell our plant material to a guy who grows for a home center. And we proposed to him, most people can't grow milkweed at a production level because they use pesticides because they want their plants to go into the home centers in pristine conditions. And so any sort of pesticide will kill the monarchs. And so it has to be in a completely pesticide-free environment. So the grower that grows for Home Depot has an organic, completely clean, pristine environment, and he could be one of the only people that could grow milkweed at a mass production. And so that in itself could help the monarch population.
Yeah, I hope he does it.
And it could also help awareness.
Good morning, fellow dragon fruit growers. This is Paul, and today I'm going to do a review on the Wallace Ranch Maria Rosa. You can see it's close to 2 pounds, or 869 grams. Now it's quite large, and it did have a little split. And so I asked them if I could do a review, and they are nice enough to allow me. If you want to buy cuttings of this, you could get it at their website right here. So the story behind this beautiful fruit is Linda from Elk Creek Dragon Fruit had a friend that had some dragon fruit, and Linda grew it out and evaluated it, and it was a great, delicious, pale pink fruit that is self-sterile. But you can see it's a delicious, beautiful, large, pale pink fruit. So this is the real Maria Rosa. So excited to see what it tastes like. And that is really, really sweet. Wow. That's much sweeter than the ones I've had in the past. Let's go ahead and give it a brick score. It is nice, beautiful, and round, and really, really large. What a delicious fruit. You can see what I mean by pale pink. It's just ever so slightly pink. Okay. Now, typically the plant is going to have one single spine, but occasionally we'll have two. But almost always a single spine. And there's another Maria Rosa I call the wrong Maria Rosa, which is a delicious fruit in its own, but that's a fuchsia colored flesh. It's much, much different than this one. 18 3/10. Now we are having unique weather, so I bet it will get higher. I've heard this will break into the 20s, low 20s. In my opinion, this is really, really sweet, lovely texture. Kind of has some of the flavors that remind me in some of the Asuntas I've tasted, believe it or not. This is a delicious fruit. I would give this a 9 out of 10. It's got a really interesting, complex flavor. Definitely different than a white flesh variety. I prefer this over any white flesh variety I've had to date. Excellent fruit. You need to try Maria Rosa. Now, friends of mine recommend using this for a rootstock as well. They say it's an excellent rootstock. So there you go. Maria Rosa. Definitely a wonderful variety of dragon fruit. Even though the brick score was under 20, that's not everything. And this is just a delicious, complex, wonderful fruit. I highly recommend it.
This row here you can just tell something different's going on in this row. So this has had everything. It's had gophers, squirrels, rabbits, and then the southern fire ants.
And the squirrels will, whoa, look at this. It's like,
Yeah,
super
that's
core.
what they do.
So they'll just eat
Yeah.
all the way up the flesh. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
squirrel damage.
And you still
Well,
have
this thing's just gonna grow roots down and won't care. I mean, look at that. It's sticking onto the concrete. So how do you bait the squirrels and move them, or?
So we use squirrelinators, I should say. Julio uses squirrelinators. And then you have to make a decision on how to eradicate the squirrels in the squirrel cages. So that's the only. So it's a easy way of catching the squirrels, and then you have to make a decision on how to
Yep.
end the squirrels.
Yeah, I was taking them way down the
Leave them
road
back.
and they come back. So
Yeah,
that doesn't work.
And it's not recommended if you do rehome them, which I was rehoming them. You have to go at least 3 miles away, and you give somebody else the problem.
Yep. Which
And
is not very kind.
No.
so we had a big squirrel problem, and we knew that the only way to do it was consistency. So Julio twice a day for almost a year. We've been a little lax for the last 2 weeks, but truly for a year, and it's over 1,300 squirrels.
No way.
Yeah.
1,300. Well, they just probably
Oh
live
yeah,
in
no,
this habitat.
and even if we finish them, they're coming from the other property, so it's like never ending here.
Yeah. So it's never ending.
It's never
Yeah.
ending. But we are at the best moment, and literally by not doing it for 2 weeks, we need to start doing it
And the
again.
thing is,
'cause it
we're
just-
doing it, but the neighbors don't do it.
Yeah.
So by the time that
So it
we
needs to be like a whole community.
the time that we
Everybody.
finish with that, you can see from the neighbors start jumping this way. So it's like,
Yeah, I live by a school, and they come from the school. Like
Yeah.
literally, it's like way over there, and you just see them jumping, and they know when I add bird seed to the bird feeder. They're so smart.
So all of this black stuff, this was where the ants just moved into the plant, and the plant just shut down.
So the ants, I can see some remains of the. Okay,
That's it. And
so
these-
that's all ant damage.
And the plant just couldn't. It just couldn't. There's probably, you can see right in here, the ants went up into the core, and
Oh
the
my
plant
gosh.
just couldn't respond.
There's one right there. There's an ant. Okay.
Yeah.
So these guys are way worse than Argentine. These are
Way-
very destructive to
They're-
dragon fruit.
Crazy destructive. I'll take you over to some plants that are surviving, but
And what
it
are they
will-
called again?
southern fire ants.
this
Like,
is what I told
they
you.
call them
that I find
California
out.
ants. They are.
All these dry little stuff.
Yeah.
And they're native? Are they native ants, or did they
See,
invade?
if we take
don't
this
know,
dry
I'm
stuff
sorry.
in here, they're coming in.
Oh yeah, they eat
See?
out
Oh
underneath
my
it.
gosh.
So that's why I told you that they're living now in the plant. That's why we don't find any nests on the outside.
And so they're just living in that plant
Yeah,
right now.
inside the plant. Yeah.
Do they live in the soil, or
No, inside here.
They
See,
come- they-
all these they get dry and
Yeah.
they start living in there. You can see now they're coming all out.
Oh man! And
Yeah.
so, was this a problem a few years ago, or is it new?
So this year was really bad, but we've had them. But we are really aware because when we did this grove, we were kind of like, oh, it's not a big deal,
Yeah.
and then it became a big deal, and then we really had to go at it hard.
And
So
they're kind of going a plant at a time.
they
Is
go
that
a
what
plant
they do?
at a time.
They live here. They multiply. They move.
And they do move. And if you go, so with diatomaceous earth, if we did have a nest and let's say there was a little nest right here. And so we dug it up and we put diatomaceous earth. Tomorrow, the little new nest will
And
be
the next
here.
one, yeah.
They just move. They just keep moving. Yeah.
Checkmate.
Oh Have you thought about getting a bunch of Argentine ants and putting them here? To
So-
have a brawl and see if they'll kill them?
Well, I was actually, when you said that earlier, when we were talking about the ants, I think I will have Finn tell me what would be the enemy of the southern fire ant, and then maybe we can introduce an ant. I'd rather have an Argentinian ant than the southern fire ant.
Yeah. Because they don't do this. This is really
It's
destructive.
really destructive, and
No.
I'll bring you. You're seeing
Yes.
you're seeing the end of the destruction. So they've since moved on.
But something like where they're up inside the plant, you're gonna do you pull them out and leave them alone and try to get rid of the ants, or what's?
So last year, what we did was we removed the plants that got really damaged. So that was a good strategy, but it didn't help the problem. So we didn't do anything
It's
about
like,
the
see,
ants.
this is been replaced this year and they back again.
They're back again.
Yeah.
So do
Anything
you
in
think
a
they were in the
bucket.
soil
Everything
the
in the
whole time?
bucket is been replaced already.
And
So-
they still came back to the
Well,
same one.
because, and here's what our strategy has to be differently this year, is we have to go after the ants first and foremost. And so
So you got to
that's-
kill the ants, not just
yeah,
change the plant.
not change the plant.
And they don't care about the boric acid ant baits or those taro ant baits.
We found that the PIC, childproof bait has
the one that works on
something.
these. Okay.
And then the diatomaceous earth has an okay result.
But what are they doing? They're just extracting the nutrients. Like, why are they putting this black?
It's like with the fruit. We notice with NEVA on the fruit.
Yeah, look at the fruit.
Are they doing it on the fruit too?
They come in the fruit, and we thought that they're going for the sugar, but they never get into the flesh.
Yeah.
So they don't ever pierce the flesh.
No, they
So
only
they're
look
just
like
living
they
here.
Go for the water out of the skin.
It's like they're getting their liquid from the plant and the fruit material, but they do not go after the sugar, the actual
the
flesh
flesh, yeah.
of the fruit.
That's so weird. I've never seen these ants before. And this was not a topic we talked about in 2019.
No.
I literally said beginning of season of 2020, somebody asked me, do you have a pest that you're concerned about? And I said, no, actually we don't. We're pretty lucky. This plant, is pretty pest free. And probably a month after I said that, we started seeing that this was a serious problem.
Yeah, I've never seen
Serious
these ants,
problem.
and I've lived in San Diego my whole life, and we always had the big red fire ants. I've never seen these little guys. So they could have been living here a long time, or were imported into this area.
Don't know. We
That's
just
weird.
don't know. We had a few small colonies this year. It's real, and they will bite. Just so be careful.
Yeah. It's not like in Argentina, and I'm aware.
And that was the only reason why we were aware of them before, was because on our lower field we had a few, and they would bite. So we always said, oh, when you see the ants, there's something different than the Argentinian ants, and just be careful. And so we tried to just not touch those plants, like it would get into if we had the fruit netted. And so now Dickie the other day came to me, and we're walking down when we get to the Robles field. Dickie said, Neva, you have a lot of ripe fruit and it's not covered and it's huge. And I said, drive me over to it. So we took the golf cart and went to it, and it was all the Robles that they just went crazy. And we just, that's it. Because you can't even pick the fruit. Like the flesh will be okay on this. So I have no problem eating it. The problem is you can't pick it because
They're gonna bite you.
These red ants biting you.
Oh man, this is annoying
This
problem.
right here, when we start with the ants, we started right here. And then from here, they move to here.
And they're in the ground. They're
And then
subterranean.
from here, they now end up right here.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So they're in subterranean. They're in the plants.
Yeah.
Sometimes they go up in the core. Sometimes they just damage the tips. Yeah, this is a new problem. This is annoying.
And Haley and Chris across the way, they're having the same ant problem.
Same ant problem. So they're spreading. What I find very interesting is, why are the Argentine ants not killing them? Because they eliminate the other ants in our...
When you said it, what made me, we don't really have Argentinian ants out here. And so maybe that's it, is maybe they ousted the Argentinian ants and they won.
Yeah.
Because it is that power
It's a battle. Greetings, fellow dragon fruit growers. This is Paul, and today I'm going to show you a very interesting grafting method that I learned at Wallace Ranch from Julio Robles. And you can see here the basic idea is that he cut two varieties and stuck them together and taped them up. So you can see it's kind of mismatched up here. Still need to work on it, but I'm noticing that this clamp might be pretty successful to help form a union. But basically what he did is he did this to 4 times, I think, and he had 2 that took, and 1 created a Chimera graft, is the best way I could explain it, and he used sugar dragon and Vietnamese white to make a magenta fleshed fruit that's very interesting and unique looking. So sit back, relax, and enjoy, but this is basically what he did. So we'll see if I could have success with this graft. I'm interested in just experimenting with it for fun. So I'll do a few more and see if it works out. But that's the basic idea, and look at what happens a few years later if it's successful. So enjoy, and thanks for watching. Hey everybody, this is Paul, and I'm back at Wallace Ranch with Julio Robles, and here's something that I'm gonna call a Chimera graft. I heard about it in 2019. And basically it's a Vietnamese white and a sugar dragon cut in half. So could you explain what you did to
You can
create
see
this?
right here. You can see where the 2 cuttings meet together.
So right here,
Yeah.
you just took 2 young cuttings,
So young cuttings, split it in half, even the core.
even the core.
Even the core,
So
yeah.
just cut the two branches
Two
right down
branches,
the middle.
yeah.
Younger, softer, and you
Put
wrap
it
them up.
together, tape it around all the way, and then start growing. And when they start growing, I was putting attention to the new growth. If they look like Vietnamese white, then I start taking them off.
So you cut off the growth.
Same with the sugar dragon. Until I see that they start coming something different, and that's what I leave these two.
Oh, so as it created new growth, you just prune
Yeah.
until it was growing up straight
Yeah.
through that core that you melded together. Oh, that's brilliant. That's how it worked. So when you did that and cut, you grew this thing out and it produced fruit.
Yeah.
And so this fruit here is sugar dragon, half sugar dragon
Half
and
sugar
half
dragon.
Vietnamese white.
Yeah.
And it's magenta flavor, fleshed inside. There's ants on me. But look at that. That's not a sugar dragon. That's not a Vietnamese white. And so to me, I think what Julio did is something really interesting, and I'm not sure if people are going to replicate it, but it just shows that these plants will hybridize or form a chimera, I think is better, when you meld 2 different varieties together through grafting.
See, you can still see
and just promote
right
that
here
growth.
what I mark it. SD and white.
Oh. That's so crazy. And I mean, look at that. It's a unique shaped fruit. So I remember seeing this in 2019 and hearing about it. So I'm really excited to be back here again and just hear the story and share this with you. I mean, obviously you can see that that is not a sugar dragon fruit,
Way bigger.
and it is definitely not a Vietnamese white fruit. And then look at the branches, you can see, looks more Vietnamese white to me,
Looks like, yeah.
but maybe a little bit of the
But they got
different
little
color.
bit
That's a
the
bit of the
sugar
color
dragon.
of sugar dragon.
Yeah, it's a different color.
It's got that oliveness
It
to
does
it.
have it. And the
So-
thorn pattern is really different.
And you're still evaluating it. It's not for sale. You're just
Yeah.
assessing it. And it's one of the unique varieties in the collection of, how many plants? 5,000 plants you have here?
Yeah, we have over 5,000 plants and
Wow.
another 2,000 in buckets waiting to go.
So we're gonna hit 10,000 here in no time, right?
we're out of room. We're out of room.
And see, this is another one that I try over here. This was orejona with American Beauty too, and this didn't make it.
So this is a graft?
Yeah. This is AB and orejona, and they never made it. You can see half is AB and half is orejona.
So you used a similar
The
technique.
similar technique,
And it
Got it.
didn't
make it.
form a chimera. It kept the
Yeah.
2 varieties. So
Yeah.
Orejona and American
And
Beauty.
American Beauty, yeah.
Yeah, side by side, huh?
That is so interesting. And so even, it's been several years now since you
Yeah,
did
it's the
this?
same. I do it at the same time.
Same time.
Yeah.
And totally different results.
Yeah.
Seems happy.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Wow.
Look at that.
Well, thank you for sharing your grafting technique. I really appreciate it. And to me, this is one of the most interesting things about dragon fruit that a lot of people don't know, and just kind of makes these plants even more mysterious. Hey everybody, this is Paul, and I'm here at Wallace Ranch, and I'm really excited to share the Wallace Ranch hybrid is what we're gonna call it. And here's the fruit. And it was crossed with what, Julio?
Vietnamese white and sugar dragon.
And what you did is you grafted it,
Yes.
and remind us how you did it again.
We got 2 pieces together, cut in half with the core on it, and tape it together.
And I've been practicing this graft. How old are the branches? How old were they?
They were young branches. They wasn't mature.
And show me about how long was your graft when you finished
they were
it.
about 12 inches.
So just about a foot.
Yeah.
Okay. And so a white and a sugar dragon produced this fruit. All right, are you ready to cut it?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. So we're gonna give a little taste review on it and give a reaction, and we'll
We're gonna go
include
right
the
down
bricks
the
as well, right down the center. And how long would you estimate this was on the vine for, or branch?
I would go 57 to 60.
Okay.
Yes. And
Yeah,
that's
it's,
only because of the winter.
yeah, it's been an interesting season this year, huh?
The winter summer.
All right, well, let's give it a shot. It is beautiful. It is, would you guys describe the redness the same color as sugar dragon, or a little bit different?
We could cut a sugar dragon.
Let's cut one and compare it. And that's a large sugar dragon right there.
So it's very similar, actually.
Oh, it
Done
is.
this later.
Slightly lighter, huh?
Yeah.
But not by much. But the flavor profile, have you guys tried
almost
this
the
one
same.
yet? Does it taste similar or is it different?
We
Different.
haven't.
It's different. It's different.
So it's not like a giant sugar dragon.
No.
Okay. I don't know what to expect. I'm
But
excited.
we haven't tried a big fruit this year, so
Yeah, it is a big fruit. It was 1.5 pounds, correct?
almost 1.5 pounds. Yeah, which it is a big fruit.
All right, we'll cut it open. Let's give it a taste.
Okay. What this side? Yeah. There you go.
Beautiful. The flesh to seed content's really nice. There's a lot of flesh to it. It's fleshy.
The centerpiece.
It's not really seedy. Skin's got a nice thickness, so this does have commercial potential. It's not too thin.
It's sweet. Too sweet.
Very sweet.
It's very sweet.
I'm gonna estimate it 19 is my official guess.
It's
We'll
very
see.
Firm. The flesh is firm.
It reminds me of Sugar Dragon. I do get some Sugar Dragon vibe to it.
It's really sweet.
It is.
Wow.
Yeah.
I gotta say it reminds me of a giant Sugar Dragon. I don't know how else, like this one tastes like a giant Sugar Dragon. I don't taste any undatus in it. What do you think?
Very sweet. Tastes like sugar dragon, and the size of Vietnamese white.
Yeah, there's zero earthiness to it, in my opinion. It's very clean.
So, try Sugar Dragon. This is what our Sugar Dragon tastes like for sure.
So Sugar Dragon.
There's a little pinky in it, I think.
Oh, it's different. There is subtle differences.
But this was sweet, really sweet.
I really enjoy this fruit.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so the good news is that there are going to be some limited cuttings available on the Wallace Ranch website. And there's not an official name yet. We're just going to call this the Wallace Ranch Hybrid for now, correct?
Correct, for now, yeah. We'll figure out a name for it. But Wallace Ranch, dragonfruit.com.
All right. And this is Paul. Give us a like and a subscribe. Thanks for your time. Julio, thanks for creating this. You are a genius, sir. And people still don't believe that it's possible. So I'm glad that you keep doing what you're doing. All right? All right. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.